Get me your manager, now.
Welcome to Tales and Retails, the weekly podcast where we talk about experiences in retail. I'm your host, Randomness, with 7 years of retail experience. Welcome to episode 1 of Tales and Retails. I am your host, Randomness. Today, I am not joined by anybody. It is just me, and this is the tale about the one that made me cry. So, this one happened roughly 3 months into my job, my very first retail job. And so, customer came in. At this point, I had already dealt with semi-entitled people, the proverbial Karen type of person. So, I was already kind of hardened to it, but, it's a relatively new job. You want to make an impression, you know what I mean? And so, I was already on my own, essentially. We had our first week of training, and then after that, they kind of let us have free reign. They eventually, they checked up on us every once in a while. And so at this point, I'm already like 2.5 months in. I kind of got the gist of it. I'm very confident about my abilities to work the cash register. So this customer comes in, and the job that I worked for had a credit card. So the credit card had a kind of rules, so it was just a store credit card. You could only use it in the store. And the limit was at, I think, a max of about $6,000. I think that was the max that I've ever seen anybody get, was $6,000. But there was a rule. So if you didn't use the card within 6 months, they closed it. So since this card didn't really do like a hard credit check, it didn't really hit anybody's credit, but people were still surprised when they would come in, a year or two. I've had a customer come in, they got a card 6 years prior and hadn't used it since that one day. So he came in, I was ringing him up, and he swiped his credit card. Or no, at that point we were doing the swiping, so we swiped his credit card, and it didn't go through, right? And so when the card doesn't go through, we have to call the bank, right? And so the customer, already mad that I have to call the bank, starts yelling at me. I don't remember exactly what was said, but mind you, I was already 3 months in. I hadn't really had anybody directly, degrade me at that point. I had people, like I said before, they would come in, they'd ask for a manager, right? I would just call over a supervisor, and they would handle it. Well, no, this guy decided to insult me. He was like, do you even know what you're doing? Like, clearly I have a good credit. And so I told him, I was like, okay, well, the card has, a 6-month time period. So if you don't use it, you lose it. And that kind of annoyed him. And so I'm sitting here, while he's yelling at me, trying to dial the number. I messed up twice. Okay? So at that point, I call over my supervisor. The supervisor is the ones that did my training, right? So she's essentially the training manager, or the hiring manager, what do you want to call it. And so she comes over, and she, the customer is yelling at her, and she says, oh, he's new. completely just throws me under the bus. Oh, he's new, he doesn't know what he's doing, like he's only been here for 2 months. And the customer's like, okay, well, maybe you should do it. And she said, I have other things I have to do. I have other better things to do. This coming from somebody that's supposed to be training you, so I then, I was like, okay, it's not something, somebody should be doing. Little did I know. Thank you for listening to Tales and Retails, the podcast where we talk about our experiences in retail. As of now, we are exclusively on YouTube. So if you're liking the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now to continue. So as I'm sitting here trying to recompose myself after getting thrown under the bus by the person who's supposed to be my trainer, I get back to it. I try again, and so I try to dial the number to this customer because his credit card got declined, and so I try to call our bank, and I fail twice again. And at this point, the guy decides he wants to take it a step further than a regular insult. And so he calls over the hiring manager again, right? And is like, oh, you, girl, like doesn't even use her name. For this instance, call her Kelly. So instead of saying, Kelly, can you come help him? He says, you, girl, right? More insulting, but she comes over, a little flustered after being called, the equivalent of a female dog. And he says, you clearly need to be training your people better because clearly this guy is incompetent. And so the customer had just called me incompetent. Now, if I were in that situation, and I was at one point in that situation in the future, because I took her position about 2 years after, I would have said, there's absolutely no reason why you need to be insulting my cashiers. If you aren't satisfied with how he's helping you, I would have, if that were me, I would have taken over the transaction. But no, this hiring manager, decided, yeah, I'm just going to agree with the customer and say, well, yeah, again, he's new. He doesn't know what he's doing. Here, let me, and she grabs the phone from my hand, dials the number, and then is like, okay, talk to them. And so I talked to them. I explained the situation. They told me pretty much since, it's been a year and a half since he used the credit card, they closed it. So you'd have to reapply. So I told him that. And obviously the customer didn't like that I told him he had to reapply. And he's like, oh, you guys are going to run my credit again. Forget that. His company's full of stuff. And so he decides, okay, I'm just going to use a different credit card. Like, mind you, at this point, I'm with the customer for like a good 40 to 45 minutes. And he just decides, yeah, I'll just use a different credit card. If you had other cards. Why did you want to use this one specifically? Like, you get nothing from using the store credit card. There was absolutely no benefit to purchases made with that credit card. And so after the customer leaves, my hiring manager, right, the supervisor that was interacting with the customer, sees that, I'm a little flustered because I've just been called incompetent. You know what I mean? And so she's like, oh, did you want to take a 10-minute break? I go, yeah, sure. So I go and I sit into the break room. As I'm sitting there, like, I'm thinking, wow, like, I just got called incompetent and I lost it. Like, I started crying. Mind you, I was like 22 at the time. Yeah, but this was my, first retail job. And so I sat there and I was crying for like a good 6 minutes. And finally, something clicked in my head. Thank you for listening to Tales and Retails, the podcast where we talk about our experiences in retail. As of now, we are exclusively on YouTube. So if you're liking the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, to continue. So after getting called incompetent by a customer because his credit card wasn't working, and I had to dial the number to call our credit card company because it was a store credit card, and my hiring manager and or supervisor not coming to my defense when he tells her that, I go into the break room and I start crying. But it was for a good maybe 6 to 8 minutes. And at that point, after all of that, I realized, why? What's the point? Why am I going to give the customer the satisfaction of getting to me? And from that point forward, I swore to myself that I would never, ever let a customer get to me. And so I got up, I walked over to my supervisor, and I told her, you could have handled that so much better. You could have said, there's absolutely no reason why you need to talk to my associates like that. But instead you agreed with him. And that looks horrible to everybody else. I was like, I don't know if anybody else heard you or saw. I was like, but that's not how you're supposed to do it. And she said her, I guess you could say, trademark remark. And she essentially threw her weight, her power over me and said, I'm the supervisor. You don't tell me what to do. Okay. That was also the day that I lost respect for her. So she was no longer my supervisor, right? From that day forward, I started looking to her for any advice. So clearly I had to find someone else. And I did. There were more competent supervisors there. And again, I lasted at that job for 7 years. So clearly other people were doing something right. And to kind of give you guys an example as to me not letting customers get to me. So the roles, I guess they went reversed. I was given her position a few years afterwards, and we had a guy who was 65 4 at the time. He was from the East, from Asia. And he spoke very little English, but he was very good. Like, we put him on a register, and he learned the register in a week, where it takes people normally a month, sometimes longer, to learn the register. And so he was good. He was very, very competent. The only downfall he had was that he didn't speak English. So a customer came in and said that he was incompetent, that why did we have him on a register? And I told the customer there was absolutely no reason why you need to belittle my associates. If you don't like how he's helping you, I can go ahead and help you over at this register. And he said, no, F that. I'm gonna just leave. And I said, okay, leave. And I swear, if the shocked Pikachu face meme was out, that's what the guy did. Yeah, I said, leave. I mean, you clearly aren't serious about doing business here, so just leave. And he pulled the whole, I want to talk to the manager. Okay, well, the manager's, across the hall. Aren't you going to get him? No. Why? And he said, well, it's your job to get the manager. And I was like, no. I was like, you want the manager, you can go look for him. I was like, I'm not going to spend my time looking for a manager. You can do that. And he ended up having me help him. And he started talking crap about me. Right? And the thing was, he took it to a personal level. Because he said, wow, with somebody like brown skin like yours, I'm surprised you speak English so well. I had to hold my tongue there. Because what I wanted to say was, wow, with somebody as fat as you, I can't believe you're still walking. Because this guy was Jabba the fucking Hutt. Wow. I didn't mean to cuss there, but yeah, he was Jabba the Hutt. This dude was no neck. It all just blended together. And then he had all above the waist. So this dude was morbidly obese above the waist, and he had very skinny legs. So, but I didn't. I said, instead I said, thanks. That's what the American school system does. Not that you would know. Thank you for listening to Tales and Retails. I've been your host, Randomness. And if you liked our video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe. We will be posting every week on Friday.